So I'm always going to look at it because there's new ways of thinking, there's new technologies, there's new information that comes, and we want to be able to adjust and iterate on that.
My name is Matt Reiner, managing partner at Capital Investment Advisor, CEO of Wellness Strategies, an author, podcast host, and also a speaker to the wealth management community. My mission is to help every family in this country have access and be served by a human financial advisor. That we all have to live in the moment and not try to force progress too quickly. Let it happen and commit to a long-term strategy in your life, in your business, and in your investment portfolio.
And now, your host and my dad, Matt Reiner.
Welcome to the FutureProof Advisor podcast. Today, we are exploring what separates the top 2% of companies from everyone else and what wealth management firms can learn from those companies. To cut to the chase, it's not technical knowledge or market timing. It's a simple mental shift that transforms your brain from security guard to explorer. Here's the thing. Your brain is lying to you about what's possible. Sorry to break it to you. Right now, as you listen to this, your neural pathways, those pathways in your brain, are following the same worn grooves they've carved for years. It's just like a river that's forgotten it once had the power to reshape mountains. Every should I, you ask, tightens those channels. Every assumption you don't question adds another layer of cement. But here's what separates the top performers from everyone else. A simple mental switch that literally rewires your neurons, calms your fear response, and lights up creative networks that most adults have let go dark. Simple question. What if? Those two words just made something shift in your brain. You felt it, didn't you? I know I did. I knew what I was going to say. That subtle loosening, like taking off a tie you didn't realize was so tight. That's what occurred. That's what happened. This isn't feel-good philosophy. This is neuroscience meeting the boardroom. Boston Consulting Group studied 2,500 companies and found that only 2% consistently outperformed their peers on both growth and profitability. And this was in both good and turbulent times. These organizations mastered something most organizations never do. They don't choose between innovation or efficiency. They breathe both. It's like a circular breathing, never stopping the flow of either. Today, we are going to explore why your most dangerous enemy isn't market volatility or regulatory changes. It's certainty addiction. We'll dive into the neuroscience of possibility thinking, discover why asking what if literally rewires your brain for breakthrough thinking. And we're going to learn this 3-question framework that innovative leaders use to transform challenges into opportunities. We'll look at why the Wright brothers succeeded where trained engineers failed. We'll examine what makes companies like 3M, which I learned a ton about during this research, and I think it's super interesting, and Amazon are perpetual innovators. And we're going to give you a practical system for building what-if thinking into your client relationships and business strategy sessions. So my hope, and I feel you will have at the end of this episode, you'll understand why the future belongs to those who stay comfortable with maybe, and how to make your competitive advantage just that, living in this gray zone of maybe. I think there's a spectrum that people fall onto in every room, in every meeting, and every conversation. On one side are what I call the should soldiers. These are armed with certainty, allergic to maybe. They're the ones who say we should stick with what works, or we should follow best practices. And they're not wrong, but they're building walls. On the other side are the, quote, what if warriors, those who see possibilities where others see settled facts. They're the ones asking, what if our clients' needs are changing faster than our assumptions? Or what if there's a better way we haven't considered? And the thing is just like politics right now, most of us lean heavily toward one camp or the other. And the tension between the two camps drives nearly every workplace conflict you've ever witnessed. You may not know it, but deep down, that's what's driving it. For years, I was a what if warrior stuck in a should soldier world, and it was exhausting. I'd find myself arguing just to argue, getting heated when someone spoke with absolute certainty about things that seemed obviously complex to me. I couldn't understand why people were so eager to close doors I couldn't even see yet. Then I realized something that changed my entire approach. I wasn't just disagreeing with their conclusions. I was fighting for a completely different way of seeing the world. Where others saw certainty, I saw possibility. Where others wanted answers, I wanted better questions. And the breakthrough came when I stopped seeing this as a personality conflict and started understanding it as a choice about how we process reality. The question isn't whether you're naturally a should soldier or a quote, what if warrior. The question is, which mindset serves your clients better? To help bring this full circle, let me take you back to a moment that really crystallized this whole thing for me. I was sitting in a conference room. I was watching a consultant present their foolproof, as they said, client engagement strategy. Every slide screamed certainty. This will increase retention by 15%. Clients always respond to this approach. You should implement this immediately. And it's always easier for us to have these kind of doubts as I read through that. I'm sure a lot of you that are listening to this kind of shook your head. Yeah, I get that. Consultants always do that. We have an easy way of seeing this in others that are outside of our industry, but we have a difficult time seeing this of those within our business. Because for some reason, we can talk to things that we don't necessarily know as well and challenge those, but we can't to those that we do. But during this meeting for me, my chest tightened with each declaration, as I'm sure it would for you. Not because the consultant was necessarily wrong, but because they were closing doors that I couldn't even see yet, as I mentioned earlier. Finally, I interrupted. And I said, but what if our clients are changing faster than the assumptions you are presenting? And the room went silent. The consultant's face went flush. And in that moment, I felt the weight of two completely different worldviews colliding. But here's what I learned in the weeks that followed, that simple question of what if. It unlocked conversations we've never had before. Team members started sharing observations they'd been holding back. We discovered client pain points we'd missed. We developed solutions that no competitor was offering. The experience taught me something profound. Certainty feels safer, but possibility is what creates value. Think about your last client meeting. How many times did you default to certainty? The market typically does this, or based on historical data, you should expect that, or standard recommendation is X. Now imagine if you'd asked instead, what if your retirement looks different than your parents'? What if we designed a strategy specifically for you, for how you want to live? What if we challenge the conventional wisdom here? The difference isn't just conversational, it's neurological. When you ask what if, your brain literally rewires itself for discovery, which is what we want and we need, which we all need. It could solve so many problems, even beyond just wealth management client servicing. And so I want to start there within the brain, because I'm a bit of a nerd and brain science is super interesting to me. And this whole power of the question of what if gets super interesting when we dissect it from a brain science perspective. So I implore you just to go with me here and nerd out for a second. When you ask, what if, two remarkable things happen simultaneously in your brain. First, you activate what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is the same neural pathways that light up during creativity, imagination, and insight. This is your brain's exploration system. And whether you think you're creative or not, we all have it. So you have an opportunity to turn that on. Second, when you ask this question, and this is really the golden goose when you pair it with that first section, what if reduces activity in your amygdala, the brain region tied to fear and anxiety? It literally calms your threat detection system. Think about that for a moment. The simple act of asking what if transforms uncertainty from a threat into a playground. Instead of your brain screaming danger, unknown territory, it starts whispering interesting. Let's explore. And now, while the barriers have been removed, we are igniting the part of the brain that thrives in exploration, the default network system. And that it also thrives in creativity. Free to roam, our minds start identifying things once seemingly ridiculous, but now seemingly credible and able to be done. Compare this to asking, should I change our investment approach? Your brain immediately searches for the right and wrong answer, activating stress pathways, thinking that there is this right or wrong answer. But now ask, what if we designed a completely different approach? And suddenly you're sketching possibilities, not building a legal case. This is why breakthrough innovations rarely come from asking, what should we do? They come from, what if we tried something completely different? The Beatles had no formal musical training, yet they revolutionized music by experimenting with unconventional techniques. Their naivety allowed them to bypass established norms, creating sounds that sophisticated or so-called sophisticated musicians might have dismissed. John Dewey called this cultivated naivety, a deliberate openness born from recognizing the limitations of existing knowledge. In your firm, this means that what if becomes your cheat code for client conversations that others cannot have. When everyone else is presenting standard solutions, you're exploring unique possibilities. When others are explaining what typically happens, you're discovering what could happen specifically for this client. What if is like adding water to a dried plant. What was rigid and fixed becomes fluid and full of creative potential again. And it all is in two simple words. The reality is that words matter. Let's get practical about the words that shape your thinking. Should I creates a courtroom in your mind. We went through the example a second ago. You're immediately weighing evidence for a verdict, searching for the right answer based on past precedent. Your brain defaults to binary thinking, right or wrong, good or bad, true, false, success, failure. What if, though, transforms your mind into an artist's studio? You're sketching rough possibilities without judgment, exploring without the pressure of being correct. Listen to the difference. Should I recommend a Roth conversion versus what if I recommend a Roth conversion? The first question triggers analytical thinking. The second triggers exploratory thinking. The second question allows you to explore how the client would react, what the benefits are for the particular client, etc. The first question forces you to box into a specific answer from the outset. Here's why this matters in client relationships. People connect with possibility, not procedures. When you say, based on your age, you should have this asset allocation, you're presenting a conclusion. When you say, what if we design an approach that reflects how you actually want to live in retirement? You're inviting collaboration. This isn't conversational nuance, it's cognitive liberation. Research shows that when clients engage in possibility thinking, they make decisions that feel more personally authentic. They're not just accepting your recommendations. They're co-creating their financial future. Ownership there. There's buy-in, which leads to outcomes that you desire. But here's the challenge. And there's always a challenge. This isn't easy. We tend to gravitate towards certainty because what if questions create ambiguity, which naturally makes us as humans uncomfortable. We have this cognitive drive for efficiency. Our brains prefer mental shortcuts that quickly solve problems over doing exhaustive exploration. The key is to time box your possibility thinking. Spend dedicated time exploring what if scenarios. Then transition to how might we implementation question. This prevents analysis paralysis while still capturing the creative benefits of possibility thinking. It's not all or nothing. As in everything in this world, there is moderation. It's a balance of the two. The world's most innovative leaders follow a specific progression of questions. And once you understand this pattern, you'll start to see it everywhere. The first step of this 3-step progression is they ask why. This is your demolition crew. It challenges assumptions and tears down limiting beliefs. Why do we assume retirement has to look a certain way? Why do we default to these investment options? That's your first step. The second is to ask the question, what if? This is your architect. If we're going through the scenario of building a house, it sketches potential possibilities and explores alternatives. What if we design something completely different? What if we change the conventional wisdom? And then the third question is this. Ask how. This is your construction team. It focuses on implementation and makes ideas real. How might we test this approach? How would we measure success? This progression moves from questioning the status quo to exploring possibilities to then determining execution paths. It's just like we did renovating a house. Why tears down walls? What if sketches dream layouts, and how makes it real? Let me give you a client example. A traditional approach would be based on your income and age, you should save 15% for retirement in a diversified portfolio. Let's now go through the question progression approach. Why do most people struggle to enjoy their retirement savings? Then explore that for some time. Then once we explore that, then we go, what if we designed a strategy that made spending in retirement feel as natural as saving during your career? Interesting. Let's explore that for a little bit. And after exploring that in a time box fashion, we go, how might we structure this so you feel confident using your money when the time comes? Do you see the difference? The first approach delivers a solution. The second approach co-creates a solution through conversation, through connection. This is why I say it's so important that we as advisors create leverage in our day to have time to go deeper this way. These are the things that we do with that extra time. We don't add more, we do more for our clients. And this is one of those areas. 3M, which I researched, I know the company, but I didn't know a lot about it until after preparing for this podcast, is one of the most consistently innovative companies in history. And they institutionalized this question progression. They regularly ask why to challenge industry assumptions, then what if to explore new possibilities, and how to turn concepts into profitable products. They didn't invent Post-it notes by asking, how can we make better adhesive? That wasn't the question. They asked, what if we made adhesive that wasn't permanent? And this is a quick side note for my research with 3M because I just thought it was super interesting. As I did research on the podcast, and I found out that in 2017, 3M launched 25 new products per week. Yes, per week. And then in March of this year, 3M unveiled a plan to launch 1,000 new products in the next 3 years. 1,000 new products in the next 3 years. That's over 330 products per year. That is unfathomable innovation. And they're using this progression. It works. It allows you to take lots of swings to find that one that hits a grand slam. Another innovative company that has changed our lives, I think I can say for everybody, is Amazon. Amazon's entire culture revolves around this progression concept. Jeff Bezos famously said they make decisions with about 70% of the information they'd like to have. They use why to challenge assumptions, what if to explore possibilities, and how to test and iterate quickly. The magic happens when you use all three questions in sequence, not just one in isolation. I find that the real magic happens within that conversation of the progression. That is where you start to co-create, co-collaborate, co-innovate, and that is where real magic, truly happens. As I mentioned in the opening, Boston Consulting Group did a study, and they studied 2,500 companies and found something remarkable. Only 2% consistently outperformed peers on both growth and profitability, even during turbulent times. These, quote, 2% companies, as they called it, mastered something that seems impossible. They excel at both exploration and exploitation simultaneously. They run operations with Swiss watch precision while maintaining a startup's wild curiosity, something that I've always looked for, because I tend to lean more towards the startup's wild curiosity. Most companies choose sides, as I just alluded to with myself and some of the companies I had run in the past. They either focus on efficiency and optimization, or they focus on innovation and growth. The 2% companies refuse to choose. They're mental time travelers, living in two zones at once, feet planted firmly in today's operations while their heads explore tomorrow's possibilities. Some of the companies that the Boston Consulting Group looked at during the study were Zara, Amazon, making its second appearance here on our podcast today, and Toyota, right? Zara combines rapid fashion innovation with ruthless, efficient supply chains. Amazon maintains visionary marketplace expansion and just overall product expansion while building world-class logistics operations, while Toyota pursues breakthrough innovations like hybrid engines while perfecting the lean manufacturing process. For us in wealth management, this translates to mastering both client service excellence and business model innovation. The 2% advisory firms, the FutureProof Advisory firm, the FutureProof Advisor, they don't choose between serving current clients well and exploring new ways to create value. They do both constantly. And here's how they think differently. Instead of asking, should we focus on growth or client satisfaction? They ask, what if we could excel at both? Instead of, should we stick with our current model or try something new? They ask, what if we could evolve our model while maintaining our core strengths? This requires what I call institutionalized curiosity. You build what if thinking into your regular business practices. Monthly team meetings include dedicated time for possibility exploration, time box again. Client reviews include questions about changing needs and emerging opportunities. We ask what if. We go deeper with clients as opposed to just providing the insight. Strategic planning sessions start with challenging assumptions, not just setting goals. The key insight here is 2% companies don't achieve excellence by choosing between innovation and efficiency. They achieve excellence by refusing to accept that choice as necessary. The question for your firm, though, is what if you could become a 2% firm in wealth? Finally, research has identified 5 psychological barriers that keep us trapped in certainty thinking. I like to refer to them as the dragons of inaction. Catchy, I like it. Dragon 1 is change is unnecessary. This is the voice in our head that says, we're doing fine. Why rock the boat? But in a rapidly evolving industry and world, standing still is moving backward, especially in this world of AI that we live in today. Dragon 2 is conflicting goals. This is the voice that says, we don't have time for exploration. We need to focus on execution. But what if exploration is the key to better execution? Another thing to think about. Dragon 3 is all around social approval fears. This is the voice that says, what will colleagues think if we try something different? But what if being different is actually your competitive advantage? Is the opportunity to bring colleagues in? Who knows? Dragon 4, lack of knowledge. This is the voice that says, we don't know how to do this. But what if not knowing is the beginning of learning? What if having that naivety is the opportunity for you? And then Dragon 5 is tokenism. This is the voice that says, we've already done enough innovation for this year or so far. We're good. But what if innovation is a continuous cycle, not an annual event? There is no finish line innovation. I think that is the challenge most leaders have. The antidote of these dragons isn't more willpower. It's better questions. For instance, when Dragon 1 appears, ask, what if our industry changes faster than we are adapting? Maybe for Dragon 2, we ask, what if exploration actually accelerates our execution? And when Dragon 3 appears, ask, what if our clients are hungry for something different? The most innovative leaders aren't fearless. They're actually just really, really curious. They've learned to transform fear into fuel for exploration. Instead of avoiding uncertainty, they've developed comfort with maybe. Studies show that companies with strong, quote, what if cultures see enhanced problem solving, continuous learning, improved collaboration, and greater resilience during disruptions. They don't just survive change, they thrive because of it. Your goal isn't to eliminate the dragon. That is not the goal. It's to transform them into guides for better questions. The awareness, the work we've done on our minds, pillar of principle 1 within the FutureProof Advisor, our mindset, helps us get to this point to where we look at them as guides, not answers, because we're self-aware. We want to guide. We want to have a curious mind. We want to learn. And that's what these dragons are all about. As we wrap this up, there's something I've been thinking about. And it's actually just came up recently in a conversation I've had. Certainty always sounds more elegant than possibility. It's easier to defend, this is how we've always done it, than what if there is a better way? Certainty feels professional, authoritative, confident. Possibility feels messy, uncertain, risky. But if the world were truly certain, we never have questioned whether humans could fly, the Wright brothers did, whether diseases could be cured, or whether pocket-sized computers could connect the globe. Every breakthrough in human history started with someone being comfortable with maybe. Someone willing to ask, what if, when everyone else was satisfied with, this is how it is. In wealth management, we're trained to project confidence, to provide answers, to reduce client anxiety. These are valuable skills, but they can become limitations if we're not careful. What if the highest form of client service isn't providing certainty, but creating space for possibility? What if the most valuable thing you offer isn't answers, but better questions? The future belongs to advisors who can hold both. Those are the future-proof advisors who can provide the confidence clients need while staying curious about the possibilities they haven't yet considered. And we've explored a lot through this podcast, from brain science to identifying what makes the 2% companies. But here's the truth that ties it all together. This isn't really about asking better questions, which, yes, is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I've talked about that for a while. It's about becoming the kind of person your client needs you to be. In a world of AI and technological rapid advancement, your competitive advantage isn't your knowledge. It's your curiosity. It's your willingness to explore possibilities that others overlook. It's your comfort with maybe in a world obsessed with certainty. The advisors who thrive, the future-proof advisors in the coming decades, I'll just say in the coming years, won't be those with the most definitive answers. They'll be those with the most generative questions. No matter your age or experience or level of success, the fact of the matter is that the advisor can and should be you. You can be the future-proof advisor, the one that evolves, changes, explores, and is different than what you have been maybe for the past 15, 20, 30 years. We all have that opportunity. But before we go, I want to hear from you. And I want to ask you this question in the podcast summary below. Which resonates more with your natural thinking style? Should soldier or what if warrior? So click the link in the episode description to share your thoughts. It's just a simple click the question, the response that best fits you. And we'll see how other advisors have answered. And understanding your natural tendency is actually the first step toward building a more balanced approach to possibility thinking. So if this episode opened your mind about the possibilities that lie in what if, share it with a team member who may be a more aligned with a, quote, should soldier. Or you can like the episode or leave a comment to help others see this episode in their feed. But be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already to be alerted on all of the new episodes each week. We are working as a team to put together just really insightful, exploratory content for you to think differently, to evolve, so that we can better serve more families and clients within this industry. So with that, I say thank you. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I never take it for granted. Go out there and be part of the change that betters our industry. Stay well, be well, keep on exploring.